Margaret Holloway was a sharp, charismatic woman who had built her life with grit and determination. At 60, she exuded elegance, her silver hair always styled perfectly, and her piercing green eyes carrying stories of both triumph and loss. A retired art curator, she was known in her small town for her wealth and mysterious allure. However, nothing shocked the town more than when Margaret announced her engagement to a 25-year-old bartender named Lucas Miller. Lucas had entered Margaret's life during a lonely evening at a high-end bar. His youthful energy and charm were undeniable. He had an enigmatic quality that drew people in, and Margaret was no exception. Despite their age gap, Lucas's attentiveness and wit enchanted her. Their whirlwind romance culminated in a private wedding ceremony at Margaret's sprawling estate. Friends and neighbors whispered their doubts, but Margaret seemed genuinely happy. For the first few months of their marriage, life appeared idyllic. Lucas moved into Margaret's luxurious mansion, and the couple often posted photos of their travels to exotic locations on social media. The disparity in their lifestyles and pasts only made their relationship more intriguing to onlookers. But behind closed doors, the cracks in their seemingly perfect union began to show. Margaret's closest friend, Evelyn, noticed the changes first. Margaret, once vibrant and independent, seemed more reserved. Lucas, on the other hand, grew more controlling, subtly taking charge of the household. He insisted on managing Margaret's finances, claiming he wanted to ease her burdens. Evelyn's concerns deepened when Margaret missed their weekly tea meeting for the first time in years. Then came the tragedy. On a quiet winter evening, the local police received a frantic 911 call from Lucas. His voice was trembling as he reported finding Margaret unconscious at the bottom of their grand staircase. Paramedics arrived quickly, but it was too late. Margaret was pronounced dead at the scene, her injuries consistent with a severe fall. The town was devastated. Margaret's funeral was a grand affair, attended by dozens of mourners, all speculating about what had truly happened. Lucas appeared grief-stricken, delivering a heartfelt eulogy that brought many to tears. However, whispers of suspicion began to circulate. Detective Grace Parker, a seasoned investigator with a sharp intuition, was assigned to the case. Something about the incident didn't sit right with her. Margaret had lived in the mansion for decades and knew every inch of the staircase. Could such a fall have been accidental? Grace's instincts told her to dig deeper. As Grace began her investigation, she uncovered troubling details about Lucas's past. Despite his charming exterior, he had a history of financial struggles and a string of failed relationships, many of which ended with allegations of manipulation. Margaret's sudden death had also made Lucas the primary beneficiary of her considerable fortune. Grace decided to interview Evelyn, who revealed her suspicions about Lucas's controlling behavior and Margaret's growing isolation. Evelyn handed Grace a letter Margaret had written just weeks before her death. In it, Margaret expressed fears that Lucas was not who he seemed, hinting at arguments about her finances. The autopsy report brought the first breakthrough. While the cause of death was listed as blunt force trauma from the fall, the medical examiner noted bruises on Margaret's arms inconsistent with a simple accident. The bruises suggested she had been grabbed forcefully before her fall. Detective Grace Parker decided it was time to confront Lucas. When she visited the mansion, she found him surrounded by boxes of Margaret's belongings, claiming he was too heartbroken to keep them. Grace carefully observed his demeanor. Lucas appeared cooperative, but something in his overly polished answers set off alarm bells. When she mentioned the autopsy findings, Lucas dismissed them, stating Margaret had stumbled during an argument and he had tried to catch her. Grace wasn't convinced. She asked Lucas if Margaret had expressed concerns about their relationship. His response was rehearsed. "Margaret and I loved each other deeply. We had our challenges, like any couple, but I would never hurt her." Grace left the mansion, her instincts screaming that Lucas wasn't being entirely truthful. Meanwhile, Evelyn unearthed more evidence. While sorting through Margaret's belongings, she found a flash drive hidden in a jewelry box. Curious, she plugged it into her laptop and discovered audio recordings. Margaret had been secretly documenting her interactions with Lucas. In one recording, Lucas could be heard pressuring her to revise her will, his tone menacing. Evelyn immediately turned the flash drive over to Grace. Listening to the recordings, Grace heard Margaret's trembling voice pleading with Lucas to stop controlling her finances. "You're suffocating me, Lucas," she said. His response was chilling. "I'm just looking out for us, Margaret. You're not getting any younger." The recordings painted a picture of a manipulative and potentially abusive relationship. Armed with this evidence, Grace obtained a warrant to search the mansion. In Lucas's home office, they found shredded documents, which the forensics team worked to piece together. Among them was a draft of a new will, one that left Margaret's entire estate to Lucas. The document was unsigned, but it was dated just days before her death. As the investigation intensified, Lucas's facade began to crack. His carefree demeanor shifted to defensiveness. Grace questioned him again, this time presenting the audio recordings and the shredded documents. Cornered, Lucas became agitated, claiming Margaret had wanted to change her will but couldn't make up her mind. But the evidence against Lucas didn't stop there. Grace interviewed employees at the bar where Lucas had worked. A former coworker revealed that Lucas had bragged about marrying into money and joked about not needing to work a day in his life anymore. Another came forward with a damning statement. Lucas had asked about poisons that could be undetectable in a coroner's report. Grace now had enough to involve the district attorney. Lucas was arrested on suspicion of murder, and the case quickly made headlines. The once idyllic romance was now being painted as a sinister plot. As Lucas awaited trial, more of his past came to light. Ex-girlfriends came forward with similar stories of emotional manipulation and financial exploitation. In court, Lucas maintained his innocence, portraying himself as a loving husband who had been unfairly targeted. But the evidence was overwhelming. The prosecution laid out a timeline of events, highlighting Lucas's financial motives, the bruises on Margaret's arms, the recordings, and his attempts to rewrite her will. The turning point in the trial came when Evelyn took the stand. Her testimony about Margaret's fear and the secret recordings added a deeply personal dimension to the case. "Margaret loved life," Evelyn said through tears. "She wouldn't have simply fallen. She was taken from us." The trial captivated the nation, with people glued to their screens as every twist and turn unfolded. The defense argued that Lucas was simply a misunderstood young man who had fallen in love with an older, independent woman. They claimed the bruises on Margaret's arms were the result of an innocent attempt to stop her fall, and the recordings were taken out of context. But the jury seemed unmoved. Detective Grace Parker was called to the stand to testify about the investigation. Calm and methodical, she presented the evidence with clarity. "This was no accident," she told the courtroom. "The victim was subjected to manipulation, financial coercion, and ultimately, physical violence." Lucas Miller's behavior before and after Margaret Holloway's death points to premeditation. The prosecution also presented expert testimony from the medical examiner. They explained that the bruises on Margaret's arms were consistent with someone being pushed or restrained, not with a simple fall. Additionally, forensic accountants testified about Lucas's rapid financial transactions following Margaret's death, suggesting he had been eagerly preparing to claim her estate. Lucas's demeanor during the trial did him no favors. While he initially appeared composed, the mounting evidence caused him to unravel. During cross-examination, he became defensive, even lashing out at the prosecutor. His claim of innocence began to crumble under the weight of his own words. The recordings proved to be the most damning piece of evidence. Hearing Margaret's voice filled the courtroom with a chilling silence. The jury listened intently as Margaret expressed fear and frustration over Lucas's growing control. In one particularly haunting clip, she said, "If anything happens to me, promise me you'll look into it." Evelyn, watching from the gallery, felt a mix of sorrow and relief. She had promised Margaret she would protect her, and now, she was finally seeing justice take shape. As the trial neared its conclusion, the prosecution delivered a powerful closing argument, emphasizing Margaret's life and legacy. Margaret Holloway was a woman of strength, intelligence, and generosity, the prosecutor said. She deserved love, not betrayal. Lucas Miller exploited her trust for his own gain and ended her life when she became an obstacle to his greed. The jury deliberated for 3 days, the tension palpable both inside and outside the courthouse. When they returned, the courtroom held its breath. The foreperson stood and read the verdict, guilty of second-degree murder. Lucas showed no visible reaction as the words echoed through the courtroom, but his shoulders sagged slightly as if the weight of the verdict had finally landed. Margaret's friends and family held each other tightly, tears streaming down their faces. Justice had been served, but the void left by Margaret's absence was undeniable. At the sentencing hearing, the judge spoke sternly to Lucas. "Your actions were calculated and selfish, and they resulted in the tragic loss of a remarkable woman. This court sentences you to 25 years to life in prison." Evelyn felt a sense of closure, knowing Margaret's voice had not been silenced in vain. After the trial, Margaret's estate was donated to various charities, as outlined in her original will. Evelyn took comfort in knowing Margaret's legacy would continue to touch lives. As for Detective Grace Parker, she quietly left the courtroom, ready to take on her next case, but this one would stay with her forever. In the months following Lucas's conviction, the small town where Margaret Holloway had lived began to heal. Her mansion, once a symbol of her opulent yet lonely life, was sold to a family who planned to restore it. Neighbors often shared stories of Margaret, reminiscing about her grace and wit. Her death, though tragic, served as a wake-up call for many about the dangers of manipulation and deceit, even in unexpected relationships. Evelyn became a voice for those who had experienced similar situations. She started a foundation in Margaret's name, dedicated to educating individuals, especially older adults, about financial abuse and the warning signs of manipulative behavior in relationships. Her work brought her national attention, and she gave interviews sharing Margaret's story, emphasizing the importance of vigilance and support systems. Detective Grace Parker, meanwhile, couldn't shake the feeling that she hadn't uncovered the full extent of Lucas's schemes. She began to investigate his past relationships more deeply, uncovering a pattern of troubling behavior. Lucas had a trail of financial disputes and unresolved allegations from ex-partners in other states. Grace worked with law enforcement in those areas to reopen cold cases, determined to bring full accountability to Lucas's actions. Lucas, now serving time in a state prison, tried to appeal his sentence, claiming he had been wrongfully convicted. His attempts gained little traction, as the evidence against him was overwhelming. Inside the prison walls, he found himself isolated, shunned even by other inmates for the nature of his crime. The charming facade that had once served him so well was now a source of ridicule. As Evelyn's foundation grew, she made it a point to honor Margaret in every project. She launched an annual scholarship for young women studying art, a tribute to Margaret's passion as an art curator. The first recipient, a young artist named Sophie, tearfully accepted the award, saying, "I feel like I've been given a chance to pursue my dreams because of someone who truly cared about leaving the world a better place." The mansion, once a crime scene, underwent renovations and was transformed into a community center. It became a space where people could gather, attend events, and access resources for financial and emotional wellness. Margaret's name adorned the entrance, ensuring her legacy of empowerment and culture would endure. Grace often visited the community center, reflecting on the case that had deeply affected her. She couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in the justice they had achieved. One day, while walking through the art gallery that had been installed in the center, she saw a portrait of Margaret, painted by Sophie. The portrait captured Margaret's strength and resilience, her eyes seeming to watch over everyone who entered. Years passed, and the memory of Margaret's story became a cautionary tale, told not just in her small town but across the country. Documentaries and true crime series delved into the details of her life and death, sparking important conversations about the dangers of toxic relationships and the resilience of those who fight for justice. As for Evelyn, she continued to keep Margaret's memory alive. Every year on the anniversary of her death, she hosted a quiet gathering at the community center. Friends and supporters came together to light candles and share stories about the incredible woman whose life, though cut short, had left an indelible mark on the world. The ripple effects of Margaret's story proved that even in the darkest of tragedies, there could be light. Her legacy became a testament to the power of community, the pursuit of justice, and the enduring strength of those who refused to let love be twisted into harm. Years after Margaret's tragic death, her story remained a pivotal moment in the town's history, a narrative that had reshaped how the community approached relationships and trust. The community center bearing her name thrived, hosting workshops on financial independence, personal safety, and recognizing warning signs of manipulation. It became a beacon of hope for many, especially older individuals looking to reclaim their autonomy. Evelyn, now a national advocate, found herself speaking at conferences and events. She shared not only Margaret's story but also the lessons it carried. "Love shouldn't come with conditions," she often said. "It should build you up, not tear you down." Her talks resonated with audiences, and she became a well-known figure in the fight against elder abuse and coercive control. One day, Evelyn received a letter from Sophie, the young artist who had been awarded the scholarship in Margaret's honor. Sophie's career was flourishing, and she had been invited to exhibit her work in a major gallery in New York. Enclosed with the letter was a photo of a new piece Sophie had painted, a vivid portrayal of Margaret surrounded by symbols of strength and resilience. "Your foundation made this possible," Sophie wrote. "Margaret's legacy is alive in every brushstroke." Detective Grace Parker had moved on to other cases, but Margaret's case remained a defining moment in her career. She had learned the complexities of human relationships and the lengths people would go to for personal gain. Grace often used Margaret's story as a teaching tool for young detectives, emphasizing the importance of following their instincts and looking beyond surface appearances. One day, Grace received a package at her office. Inside was a handwritten note from Evelyn, thanking her for her unwavering commitment to justice. Along with the note was a small painting of Margaret, a replica of Sophie's gallery piece. Grace hung it in her office as a reminder of the power of perseverance and the importance of fighting for those who couldn't fight for themselves. Meanwhile, Lucas's appeals continued to be denied, and his time in prison was marked by growing regret. Isolated and aging, he began writing letters to Evelyn, attempting to explain his actions. Evelyn, however, chose not to respond. Instead, she placed the letters in a box labeled "Unopened Regrets" and tucked it away, refusing to let his manipulations infiltrate her life once more. The mansion-turned-community center became a cornerstone of the town. Its art gallery expanded, and its annual fundraiser, called Margaret's Light, attracted visitors from across the country. The fundraiser celebrated art, resilience, and the power of community, raising thousands of dollars each year for Evelyn's foundation and local charities. One year, during the Margaret's Light Gala, Evelyn gave a heartfelt speech. "Margaret's life was one of beauty, love, and strength," she said. While her story ended in tragedy, her legacy reminds us that even in the darkest moments, we have the power to shine brightly and bring change. The gala ended with a candlelight vigil, attendees walking through the mansion's gardens, which had been lovingly restored. As they walked, many spoke softly of Margaret, sharing stories of her kindness and grace. Evelyn stayed until the last candle burned out, gazing at the stars and whispering a quiet, "Thank you, Margaret." In the years to come, the lessons learned from Margaret's story continued to ripple outward. People who attended workshops at the community center shared their knowledge with others, creating a web of awareness and empowerment. The story of Margaret Holloway became a symbol of both caution and hope. Though Margaret was gone, her spirit remained in the lives she touched and the changes she inspired. Her name became synonymous with resilience and justice, a reminder that even in the face of betrayal and loss, love and strength could prevail. As time passed, Margaret's story became a national symbol of transformation, justice, and resilience. Documentaries, books, and podcasts were created about her life and tragic death, sparking discussions about love, trust, and the red flags of manipulation. Evelyn often participated in these projects, ensuring that Margaret's voice remained at the center of the narrative, not overshadowed by Lucas's misdeeds. One of the most impactful projects was a film titled The Legacy of Margaret Holloway. The film explored her journey from a successful art curator to a victim of betrayal, highlighting her strength, her passions, and the lessons learned from her tragic end. It wasn't just a crime story, it was a celebration of her life and a call to action to protect vulnerable individuals from similar fates. The community center continued to thrive, becoming a hub for empowerment. One particularly innovative program they launched was a mentorship initiative pairing younger generations with seniors. This program allowed older individuals to share their wisdom and life experiences while receiving guidance on modern challenges like technology and financial literacy. The program was aptly named Margaret's Circle. Evelyn became a frequent visitor to Margaret's Circle sessions, often sharing stories of her friendship with Margaret. "She was more than my friend," Evelyn would say. "She was my sister in every way that mattered. And even now, I feel her guiding us towards something better." Detective Grace Parker, though officially retired, occasionally volunteered at the community center. She would offer seminars on crime prevention and the importance of spotting manipulation and coercive behavior. Her insights, shaped by years of experience, were invaluable to the attendees, who often left feeling more prepared to safeguard themselves and their loved ones. Lucas, now an older man himself, faded into obscurity behind prison walls. His appeals were exhausted, and his health began to decline. Though he continued to write letters, seeking forgiveness or attention, no one outside the prison paid him much mind. He lived out his days in solitude, a far cry from the opulence he had once sought to control. On the 10th anniversary of Margaret's passing, the community center hosted a massive celebration of her life. The event included an art exhibition, workshops, and a keynote speech from Evelyn. The centerpiece of the event was Sophie's latest painting, a breathtaking mural that depicted Margaret surrounded by vibrant flowers, symbolizing growth and renewal. The mural was installed in the main hall of the community center, where it became a permanent fixture. During her speech, Evelyn reflected on the journey they had all taken. "Margaret's story reminds us of two things," she said. "First, that love should be a source of light, not a tool of control. And second, that even in the face of great loss, we have the power to rebuild, to create something beautiful out of the ashes." The crowd applauded, many wiping away tears. Margaret's legacy had indeed grown beyond what anyone could have imagined. Her life, though marked by tragedy, had become a beacon for change, inspiring countless people to stand up for themselves and others. As the event concluded, Evelyn walked through the gardens one last time, now filled with sculptures and art installations created in Margaret's honor. She paused by a bench engraved with Margaret's favorite quote, "Life is a canvas, paint it with all the colors you can." Evelyn smiled softly, feeling Margaret's presence in the warm evening breeze. "You're still here, my dear friend," she whispered. "And you always will be." With that, she turned and walked back toward the lights of the community center, the sound of laughter and celebration filling the air. Margaret's story had come full circle, leaving a legacy that would continue to inspire for generations to come. Although the anniversary celebration marked a decade since Margaret's passing, her influence continued to ripple through the community and beyond. Evelyn's foundation expanded its outreach, establishing satellite programs in other towns and cities. Each program carried Margaret's name, ensuring her legacy remained tied to the values of empowerment and justice. Evelyn herself became a quiet icon. Her work in advocating for victims of coercion and financial abuse earned her recognition from national organizations, and she was eventually invited to testify before Congress about the importance of stronger protections for vulnerable adults. Her impassioned speech, laced with stories of Margaret's courage and love, helped pave the way for new legislation aimed at preventing elder abuse and exploitation. Meanwhile, Detective Grace Parker's seminars gained popularity across law enforcement agencies. Retired but far from idle, she became a mentor for young detectives, helping them navigate the complexities of investigating cases of domestic abuse and financial manipulation. Grace often spoke of Margaret as a symbol of why persistence and attention to detail mattered in investigations. Margaret's voice was almost lost, she would say. But we didn't let that happen. That's the kind of justice we owe every victim. At the community center, Margaret's Circle became one of the most beloved programs. One day, a young man named Jonah, a participant in the mentorship initiative, approached Evelyn with a special request. He wanted to curate an art exhibit showcasing the work of senior artists who had rediscovered their creative passions through the center's programs. Evelyn agreed wholeheartedly, and the resulting exhibit, titled Echoes of Light, became a celebrated annual event. Jonah's dedication reminded Evelyn of Margaret's belief in the power of art to connect people. At the first exhibit's opening night, Evelyn found herself standing before a painting that brought her to tears. It was a reimagining of Margaret's beloved gardens, filled with vibrant colors and subtle nods to her life, a glass of wine on a table, a book left open on a bench, and a painting easel tucked under a tree. The artist, an elderly man named Arthur, had been inspired by stories of Margaret's strength and resilience. Margaret would have loved this, Evelyn said softly, running her fingers along the edge of the canvas. Thank you, Arthur. This is beautiful. The mural in the community center's main hall became a gathering point for visitors, many of whom would pause to admire its intricate details. A plaque beneath it told Margaret's story, not just the tragedy but the triumphs that came after. It highlighted how her life had sparked a movement, creating safer spaces and stronger communities for countless people. As for Sophie, her career as an artist continued to flourish. She often credited her success to the scholarship and support she'd received through Margaret's foundation. Years later, Sophie would open her own gallery and dedicate an entire section to works inspired by Margaret's life and legacy. She called it The Light of Holloway, a tribute to the woman whose story had inspired her to pursue her dreams. Evelyn, now in her twilight years, felt a deep sense of peace. On quiet evenings, she would sit on the bench in the gardens bearing Margaret's favorite quote, reflecting on the journey they had all taken. Though Margaret's life had been cut short, the love and hope she had left behind were boundless, spreading far beyond what anyone could have imagined. One night, as Evelyn gazed up at the stars, she whispered, "We did it, Margaret. You've changed the world." The wind rustled the leaves in response, carrying with it a sense of warmth and reassurance. Margaret Holloway's story, though rooted in tragedy, became a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of love to heal and inspire. Her name lived on in art, in community, and in the countless lives touched by her legacy, a shining reminder that even in the darkest times, light could prevail. As the years rolled on, the impact of Margaret Holloway's legacy continued to deepen. The Margaret Holloway Foundation became a global entity, with branches in major cities around the world. It supported thousands of people every year through its advocacy programs, legal assistance for victims of financial abuse, and creative arts initiatives. Her name became synonymous with hope and empowerment, her story a guiding light for those seeking to rebuild their lives. Evelyn, now well into her 80s, found herself in the spotlight once again when the foundation celebrated its 20th anniversary. A gala event was held at the original community center, which had since expanded into a sprawling campus offering a wide range of services. The event brought together people whose lives had been touched by Margaret's legacy, survivors of abuse, artists who had found their voices, and advocates who had carried her mission forward. During her speech, Evelyn reflected on the journey they had all taken. "Margaret's life was a masterpiece," she said, her voice steady but emotional. "Even though it ended too soon, the colors of her legacy continue to inspire us. Every life changed by her story is a brushstroke on the canvas she left behind." The highlight of the evening was the unveiling of a new sculpture in Margaret's honor. Created by Sophie, now an internationally renowned artist, the sculpture depicted a woman standing tall, her arms outstretched as if embracing the world. Surrounding her were smaller figures, each holding a piece of her legacy: an easel, a book, a torch of light. The plaque beneath the sculpture read, "In memory of Margaret Holloway, a life of love, strength, and boundless light." Evelyn, seated in the front row, wiped away tears as she watched the crowd gather around the sculpture, their faces illuminated by the warm glow of its design. "This is exactly what she would have wanted," Evelyn whispered to Grace Parker, who had come out of retirement to attend the event. Grace nodded, her expression one of quiet pride. "She'd be proud of you, Evelyn. Of all of this." Meanwhile, Sophie's work with the foundation continued to grow. She launched a traveling art exhibit titled Holloway's Journey, which featured works inspired by stories of resilience and recovery. The exhibit toured globally, with proceeds funding scholarships and programs for survivors of financial and emotional abuse. At every stop, people shared how Margaret's story had resonated with them, sparking movements for change in their own communities. Lucas's chapter in the story faded into obscurity. After years in prison, he passed away quietly, his attempts to rewrite history forgotten. His actions served only as a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance and justice. In the end, he became a footnote in the much larger story of Margaret's enduring legacy. Evelyn spent her final years at peace, surrounded by friends, family, and the community she had helped build in Margaret's honor. She often visited the gardens, now a sprawling sanctuary filled with artwork and tributes to Margaret. On her last visit, she sat on the same bench where she had often reflected, her gaze fixed on the sculpture of Margaret. As the sun set, casting a golden light over the gardens, Evelyn closed her eyes and smiled. "You did it, Margaret," she whispered. "You changed the world." When Evelyn passed away shortly after, her funeral was a celebration of her life and her role in carrying Margaret's mission forward. She was laid to rest beside Margaret, their graves marked by simple stones engraved with their names and the words "Sisters in Life and Legacy." The foundation, now led by a new generation, continued to grow, its mission unyielding. The story of Margaret Holloway, once a tale of tragedy, had become a story of triumph, love, and resilience. And though time moved forward, her name remained etched in the hearts of those who carried her light. And so, Margaret Holloway's story reminds us all that even in the face of betrayal and tragedy, strength, resilience, and love can create a lasting legacy. Her life and the lives she touched continue to inspire generations to stand up against injustice, cherish their loved ones, and build communities where hope can thrive. Margaret's light shines on, proving that even in the darkest moments, we have the power to create something beautiful. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more captivating tales, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell so you never miss an update. Give this video a thumbs up to show your support, and let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. What did Margaret's story teach you? Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.